Happy Friday, everybody. Today's video is a little bit of a mashup of some current events going on around the country. Tomorrow is a big nationwide protest. The No Kings protest is happening across the country. There's a lot of stuff that has been happening in the last 24 hours with the Trump administration, the West Coast states, and all of the anti-ICE stuff that's going on. So let's dig into a few different stories today. Hey everybody, I'm Julie Barrett and I'm the founder of Conservative Ladies of America. And I missed yesterday's live stream because StreamYard was down due to an outage. And by the time it came back up, it was a little after 5 o'clock my time, and 5 o'clock was our scheduled go time for the live stream. So I apologize for that. This video is the replacement for yesterday's live stream. I will be back on schedule next Thursday, June 19th at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. So I hope that you will mark your calendar and plan to join me. A lot has transpired just in the last 12 to 24 hours. So today we're going to dig into a few different stories that are going on across the country. As you're probably aware of, tomorrow, June 14th, is the No Kings protest that is happening nationwide. There are protests planned in cities all across the country. I think here in my county, Sarasota County, I believe there are 5 protests. Of course, in a state like Florida, Texas, your law and order states, these protests hopefully will remain peaceful. If they're not, they will probably be nipped in the bud fairly quickly, but it will be interesting to see how these protests play out in your Democrat radical left run states, specifically the entire West Coast. The governors of Washington, Oregon, and California have been showing a really united front against the Trump administration and against the ICE efforts that are going on in these sanctuary states and sanctuary cities within the states. And we've seen for the last week sort of this back and forth between California Governor Gavin Newsome and the Trump campaign. There have been ICE raids in the city of Los Angeles. There have been violent protests, which I have covered in previous videos earlier this week. Well, yesterday afternoon, Gavin Newsome took to social media to take a victory lap because a Northern California district court had ruled in favor of him getting a temporary restraining order that would not allow the National Guard at Trump's direction to be operating in the state of California.
Today's order makes clear that he is not above or beyond constitutional constraints. Constitution sets forth limits. The president is a constitutional officer. The President of the United States works under the Constitution. And so we are very gratified by this decision.
It was just a few hours later on Thursday night that a court of appeals stayed this decision and is allowing Trump to keep the National Guard in California until June 17th. So what that means is Trump will have control over the National Guard this weekend while these No Kings protests are going on. So that's really a huge win. Trump posted about it on Truth Social this morning, thanking the Court of Appeals for this ruling, allowing the Trump administration to have some kind of law and order happening in California. Yesterday, Washington State Governor Bob Ferguson was doing a press conference about some legislation pertaining to transportation, specifically to the Washington State ferries. And he was asked a question by one of the reporters at the press conference about the Trump administration and Trump utilizing the National Guard to bring law and order to these violent protests that are happening in these blue cities. And here's what he had to say in response to that.
Of course, what happened in California when the president federalized the National Guard was an escalation. That's the direct result of that decision, that unlawful decision, I might add. And so, of course, that is the issue that is right in front of us right now. And so that's why we're watching the developments in the court case in California very closely today. And that is what much of our preparation is for. And so I don't want to get out ahead of it beyond that, but I think we're taking all the appropriate steps to make sure we're ready for that on the legal front. but also making sure we're prepared for anything that might happen from an illegal action by the president here in Washington State. Thanks
Now,
so much.
something I thought was really interesting is that both Governors Newsom and Ferguson took to social media to celebrate the win for the temporary restraining order. But neither of them, at the time I had started recording this video, had taken to social media to announce the change by the appeals court. One of the things that I think is really noteworthy about the messaging that is coming out of these leftist governors along the West Coast is that they're saying that the violent protests are giving Trump a win. And this is a narrative that they have all been parroting pretty much the same. And they're asking people to stay peaceful, yet they're not willing to send in law enforcement and allow them to do their job to maintain law and order. So while the messaging sounds good and they make it sound like President Trump is the one that is allowing things to be violent, they're the ones that are allowing things to be violent because they are not putting a stop to this. They're not discouraging it at all. So it's very scary as we head into the No Kings protests happening across the country tomorrow for these Democrat-led states and cities. So if you are in one of these blue states or blue cities, please do take precautions. Tomorrow probably isn't a good day to be out and about. Be aware of your surroundings, be smart, be wise, and don't be somewhere if you don't absolutely need to be there. If there is protest activity going on, please allow the police, the law enforcement officers, and the National Guard or whoever is out to be doing everything that they can to maintain law and order. All right, moving along to our second topic for this video. It seems that Trump has flip-flopped again, and this time it's on immigration. He made two different Truth Social posts yesterday that seem to kind of contradict themselves. Now, one of the things that Trump ran on was his immigration enforcement, and I think it's safe to say that he received a mandate by the American people for this immigration enforcement and for massive deportation efforts. On Thursday, June 12th, Trump posted on Truth Social, "Our great farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business have been stating that our very aggressive policy on immigration is taking very good, long-time workers away from them, with those jobs being almost impossible to replace. In many cases, the criminals allowed into our country by the very stupid Biden open borders policy are applying for those jobs. This is not good. We must protect our farmers, but get the criminals out of the USA. Changes are coming." So based on this post, it sounds like Trump wants to allow the farm workers and the travel and hotel and hospitality illegal immigrants to be able to stay in the country because they are the good workers. And while I do agree that by and large, these people are probably good, law-abiding folks, they are not legally in the country. And I would also say that we do need immigration reform that allows these people to come here and make the process a little bit easier, quicker for these people. There are visas for people who are working in agriculture and other industries. And so there is a process for this. But my guess is that there are people in the farming industry that are losing their workers due to these deportation efforts, or that they are afraid that they're going to lose their workers due to the deportation efforts. And so there has been some pressure on Trump or the administration or the Republicans in Congress to dial things back a little bit. Here is a press conference where Trump was asked about this yesterday.
What made you change your mind about targeting in California farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business?
Well, we're not targeting. In fact, if you look today, I put out a statement today about farmers. Our farmers are being hurt badly by, they have very good workers. They've worked for them for 20 years. They're not citizens, but they've turned out to be, great. And we're going to have to do something about that. We can't take farmers and take all their people and send them back because they don't have maybe what they're supposed to have, maybe not. And you know what's going to happen and what is happening? They get rid of some of the people because, you know, you go into a farm and you look and people don't, they've been there for 20, 25 years and they've worked great and the owner of the farm loves them and everything else. And then you're supposed to throw them out. And you know what happens? They end up hiring the people, the criminals that have come in, the murderers from prisons and everything else. So we're going to have an order on that pretty soon, I think. We can't do that to our farmers and leisure too, hotels. We're going to have to use a lot of common sense on that.
Now, this is a much different tune than what we heard during the campaign and what we've been hearing during the early days of this administration. Now, later last night, so Thursday, June 12th in the evening, Trump came again and posted on Truth Social, but posted a little bit of a different tune. At 6:45 p.m. on June 12th, he writes, "The Biden administration and Gavin Newsome flooded America with 21 million illegal aliens, destroying schools, hospitals, and communities, and consuming untold billions of dollars in free welfare. All of them have to go home. So do countless other illegals and criminals who will turn us into a bankrupt third world nation. America was invaded and occupied. I am reversing the invasion. It's called remigration. Our courageous ICE officers who are daily being subjected to doxing and murder threats are heroes. We will always have their back as they carry out this noble mission. America will be for Americans again." So here, this sounds like what we heard on the campaign trail, but this back and forth is enough to give a person whiplash. It is like, what is the policy? What are we doing? Who's being deported? Who's not? I think there needs to be some consistency. There needs to be better messaging on this. And then they need to effectively carry out the mission and the mandate of the American people. At the same press conference I referenced a couple of minutes ago, President Trump also said that he welcomed Chinese students into America and that we have 500,000 Chinese students here in America.
Look, I've always been in favor of students coming in from other countries. That includes China. And we have 500,000 Chinese students coming in. I've always been in favor of it. Does it mean that you have to watch people? Yeah, you have to watch students, but you have to watch other people also. I've always been strongly in favor of it. I think it's a great thing. It's also, it's good for our schools. It's good for, I think it's good for our country. I'm also in favor of having them stay. I've been in favor of letting them stay. If you get educated for 4 years, you're willing to get educated for 4 years. I like people being able to stay. You know, they have some great students.
Again, this is not what was promised in the campaign. This is not what the American people wanted. I think that there are a number of problems with having these massive numbers of foreign students in our colleges here in America. So again, we're seeing another flip-flop, and we've been seeing this quite a bit over the last several months. So I'd be curious, for those of you watching, I wish I could be having a back and forth with you as we normally do in our lives, but I'd love to hear in the comments what your thoughts are on kind of Trump's stance on this whole immigration deal. I think we're hearing a lot about the ICE raids and the ICE activity, but the numbers of people being deported, and I don't have the figures in front of me, but the numbers are, I believe, lower than what we have seen in previous administrations, even in Democrat administration. So I'm curious what you guys think about Trump and his flip-flopping on the immigration issue specifically. All right, the last thing I wanted to talk about today is the Doge cut passed through Congress yesterday. It was a close vote, 214 to 212, with 4 Republicans voting no for the Doge cuts. This is a big deal. It is $9.4 billion, which in the grand scheme of things isn't huge, but it is a good place to start. And hopefully it is the beginning of chipping away at things. The problem is, as this bill moves over to the Senate for a vote in the Senate, there is talk that there are a few Republicans who are not on board with these cuts. So it's uncertain whether these cuts would be voted out of the Senate. So that remains to be seen. Of course, Trump is taking a victory lap on the Doge cuts. He's taking credit for this being his bill. I'm not exactly sure who's behind it. I think we can say that for the most part, Elon Musk probably drove most of these cuts, him and his team. I think this is a great start. And as I mentioned, I hope that this is the beginning of a number of cuts to wasteful government spending. So this is something that we're going to want to watch in the days ahead as it moves through the Senate, and which Republican senators are not in favor of voting for these Doge cuts. Again, I hope that you will plan to join me on Thursday, June 19th for my live stream. It's been, I think, a month since I have done a Thursday live. So I'm looking forward to being back at it. Please do leave comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and engage with you on what you think about all these topics that we have discussed today. If you'd like to reach out to me privately and directly, you can always send me an email, julie@conservativeladiesofamerica.com. I love hearing from you guys. I so appreciate your notes of encouragement. I love being able to chat back and forth with you guys. It's really great getting to know you all. I am just like you. I'm a concerned citizen, and I just take my voice to the social media platforms. And so this really is the fun of it for me. If you aren't already, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please do give this video a thumbs up. That does help the YouTube algorithm and lets other people see our videos. And please do share this video with other like-minded, freedom-loving Americans. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you on Thursday. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.